at the beginning of 2017. And I wanted to start everybody off in good format for the year, get you some clarity. Most people I've spoken to during the course of this week are busy back into the year. And I know it's very easy to launch back into a mountain of emails and not have the clarity about what you're doing differently. Now, I know some people on this webinar, and Jamie's one of them, had spent time ahead of the beginning of the year to plan what they were going to do for 2017 to get the very best out of this year. So what I wanted to do is just share with you my observations around 12 different things that you can do and consistently do in your business year on year to deliver consistent growth, to double your business, and whatever double your business means for you. That could be doubling profit, could be doubling revenue, it could be doubling the rate of growth that you previously had. It's about how do we create a stretch in our business that makes us feel alive and makes us want to jump out of bed in the morning and make a difference in the world. So what I'm going to do is going to testing a new format. Most webinars, if you've been on a webinar before, you'll know that most webinars tend to be about an hour in duration and then up to 15 minutes of questions and answers at the end. I know you're busy, you've got family lives, and for those of you with young families, you know, there's an evening that's precious time. So what I'm doing is testing a new format with a 30-minute webinar with 10 to 15-minute questions at the end, just so that it's succinct and it gives you the value. So these 12 steps that I'll be sharing with you, I'll be doing 3 steps a week each Thursday over the next 4 Thursdays in January to set you up for growth this year in 2017. And everything that I'll be doing in across the course of the training, the webinars, is going to be based around my business growth model. That if some of you have been following my emails and my videos in the past will be aware of the strategy compass. So rather than spending time to go through what the model means, what it stands for, on our website, gavinpreston.com, and indeed on our YouTube channel, which is Gavin Preston 1, you'll see a video that talks in depth about the model. But what I want to do is cross-reference each of those 12 points to one of the elements or one of the key stages on the strategy compass. So the first step that I want to get clear for everybody is that if we're going to grow our business, we've got to have a strong foundation with which to grow on. You know, it's interesting that I noticed that one of the high street banks sent out an email about some webinars that they're doing, and their theme was about protection and security. And I thought, well, yes, that's important with some uncertainty in marketplaces, post-Brexit, changes in exchange rates. What does this mean to funding and lending? All of these points, by the way, I'm going to cover during the course of this webinar. But what struck me was, given that economies follow through cycles, they go through spring, summer, autumn, winter, there is a time in the economic cycle and the cycle of a business that it is appropriate to sort of check that your protection is correct, the security is right of your business. But maybe I want to reframe that. I want to be able to say, let's not just sort of bolt the doors and batten down the hatches and draw up the drawbridge as you might take as being the message from that one high street bank to weather out any potential storm that may or may not be coming. My approach is, you know, if you're going to go to sea and you go to sea in a stable, well-found boat, a well-found vessel, then you're in a good shape to deal with whatever's thrown at you. Let's face it, we don't know what's going to be thrown at us over the next 1, 2, 3 or more years. But I have been, as some of you will know, that my passion, my hobby is sailing, and I've been at sea in the middle of the Atlantic or in the middle of the North Sea in the teeth of a gale. But I was in a well-found boat with a competent crew, with a really good leader, a really good captain. And as a result of that, not only did we get through the storm, but perversely, I got a buzz out of it. I got a real buzz out of battling against those elements and coming out on top. So how do we apply this to the day-to-day aspects of your business? And this links to the capability part of the strategy compass. Well, first of all, cash flow. Of course, everybody knows that cash is king. And if we are going to grow, growth, as many of us know and appreciate, is thirsty on cash. And it can be that when we're going through a period of growth, we find ourselves in a position where our business is underfunded. It doesn't have the appropriate level of cash to be able to support the level of growth of the business. Indeed, also that when we examine the way that our systems work around credit control internally within the business, it may well be that we find that we're not invoicing quickly enough, we're not invoicing the full extent of what should be invoiced, expenses that need to be passed on contracts, for example, or to customers, and we're not chasing effectively enough by way of credit control the money that should come in. So cash flow is key, not only to keep making the payments, and whether that be to suppliers or to members of your team, and to invest in future growth, but also to create a cash buffer. There's a great Jim Collins is a fantastic business author, and if you've not seen any of Jim Collins's work, I really encourage you to take a look. I would start with probably his most well-known book, Good to Great, by Jim Collins. But one of his latter books is called Great by Choice. A bit heavy reading, particularly particularly in the early elements of it. But what he studied was those businesses that had not only grown but stayed at the top of their game and weathered any fluctuations in economic cycles, and weathered any sort of knockbacks from whether it be the competition, market changes, legislation, interest rate changes, consumer demand, whatever the case may be. And he found that those businesses that not only had grown and stayed at the top had built what he uses the analogy of oxygen tanks. And he came to the analogy of oxygen tanks from studying successful expeditions to summit Mount Everest. And the teams that actually had deposited and left on the way up the mountains extra reserve oxygen tanks in case they got delayed on the way back down due to unforeseen or adverse weather conditions, more of them were able to survive longer on the side of the mountain and get back down safely to base camp and back down to ground level. And the analogy then in business was that those businesses that had built up cash reserves were the ones that, if they had a growth spurt and they needed some extra cash flow, if they had a customer that had a bad debt, had a big impact on their cash flow, if there was a changing interest rate, or if there was another business acquisition that came along, or a business that was suffering difficulties or went bust, there could be that war chest is another way of looking at it. It means that you could get some acquisitions at a really good knockdown basement price to help fuel, and add to your growth through acquisition rather than just organic growth. So just imagine that. And if you were able to take a small percentage of all the revenue, all the invoices being paid into your business, if you were able to take a small percentage, start off with it might be 1 or 2 or 5%. Ultimately, if you could get it to something like 10% of your revenue to come in to build up a cash buffer. Just imagine, well, actually put it in the answers in the question box. If you had in your business 6 months of operating costs saved up and already in a deposit account that you could access, how would that make you feel in your business? So just put in the chat box, put the answer in the questions there. If you had 6 months of operating costs, the cost that you need to pay out every month to keep the staff employed, the doors open, the lights on, etc. If you had 6 months worth of cash in your business, how would that make you feel? Yeah, Jamie says it'll make you free, take the stress away is another answer. It gives you choice. It absolutely gives you choice. Now, here's the thing. If it does make you free and it does make you feel more relaxed, so we'll come on to it in a few minutes, you're able to operate from a position of clarity of thought rather than being in fight or flight mode, and more of that later. So building that cash buffer. Now, I know every pound's a prisoner, as the phrase goes. And yes, when the money comes in, it's got to go to paying suppliers. It needs to be an element of it to pay the VAT man, and the list goes on. What I'm saying is, if we want to create a business that's going to be resilient over time, start with 1%, start with 2%. Get into the discipline of saving and creating that cash buffer. By the way, the same for your personal finances as well. If you've got 6 months of mortgage payments covered, or even 6 months of your family living expenses, that's a very good place to be. In case you never know what's around the corner in terms of personal illness, or I don't know, something breaks down in the house, or a roof might need repairing, or whatever it might be. There could be a car needs to be replaced. If you've got a buffer, it puts you in a very different position in terms of growth of your business. The other thing that I'd like you to think about in terms of securing that growth base is cost base. It's interesting that when you go in and look at a business's P&L account, look at its expenses, over time, how many little costs can creep in actually are no longer either being utilized or relevant, and actually can add up. I'm an avid learner, and I tap into as many different resources as I can, and so that I can serve you guys as best as I possibly can. But what I'm also good at in so doing is I'll join this membership program here or that membership program there, so I can learn, and it's £38 there and £44 there a month. And they all sound a small amount, but when you start to add them up, that could be 500, 600 more pounds every month. And that's just a little indication. Could you look at how to switching your utility suppliers to save money? Are there certain ways in which you're doing things that, by way of your systems and approach, that are no longer efficient? That brings me on to the next point. Have you got adequate and clear systems so that members of staff know what to do in the most efficient way, and they can do it in a consistent basis? A business that I've recently spent some time in, they were rushing to get product out of the door, and as a result of that, the guys in the workshop, a massive workshop, were reading a product spec of an individual product, and weren't looking with enough detail and quality of all of the specification of this product. That product was going out to the customer, ultimately only one part, but that one part was crucial. That part was wrong. And so that product will get sent back as a return, and somehow amongst their busy production, full to capacity production schedule, they would somehow have to find a way of slotting in remaking that door or replacing that part with the right part. So what they needed to do, and of course that was robbing productivity and was also affecting profitability because of the amount of rework. So have you got clear systems so that everybody within your business, from initially the sales right through the sort of customer life cycle through to customer service, are following those clear processes so that they're operating in the most efficient and effective way? Those things, when you grow a business, when you put the pedal to the metal in growing a business, it will show up any cracks in any of these areas around cash provision and cash flow, your cost base, and your systems. Then do what you can before you're going to engage in, right, let's look for new markets. Let's bring a new product to an existing market. Look what you can do to secure your pipeline with existing customers, pipeline of work. Have conversations with them. How can you extend for an upsell or a cross-sell of other services? Could you extend the length of time that you're contracting with them? Could you offer a follow-on service contract to them after you've done an installation? How could you secure existing customers to be with you longer and buy more off you in order that you're able to have a security of order book before you embark on new phases of growth? And then finally in this section, I just want you to have a clarity of where you're heading. You need a clear plan. We're talking about growth. Everything that I want to achieve with the people that I work with is about how do you grow the business and achieve the quality of business that makes the quality of difference in your marketplace that you're proud of, that achieves the quality of life that you aspire to. And in order to be able to do that, you've got to have a clear plan. You've got to have a clear strategy that is very well communicated and got engagement within your teams. So point one, secure that growth platform, create the platform, the foundations for that growth. Secondly, embrace the game. So what do I mean by that? If we want to go from point A to point B, whatever the goal of where point B is, the first question that we tend to ask ourselves, of course, is the question, how? And as we ask, how do I do that? How on earth am I going to get that? How am I going to fund it? Where am I going to get the right quality of resource? How am I going to get the extra leads? What do I need to do to convert those? It can feel that each of the answers to the how questions is like building that brick wall. Now, what's interesting about that brick wall that's being built is words such as, or responses such as frustration and hesitancy and fear and anxiety and stress and indecision start to come out. And what I've noticed, again, over the last 2 or 3 months, I've had the great opportunity to talk to a lot of different business owners. And I see a number of business owners working really hard and consistently hard, but they're scared of doing anything differently, and they have their head down doing more of what they did before. And when it comes to making the calls, the business decisions in order to move their business forward, they're hesitant, they're fearful. And then if you layer over that, media, if they choose to pollute, in my opinion, their mind and their focus with the tripe that's in the media that creates fear and a control type culture, then they're shooting themselves in the foot. Because what do? They put themselves into that fear state, which is fight or flight approach, and they take no action like a rabbit in the headlights, or they run away from it. And of course, when we're accessing, we're in that fight or flight approach, we're incapable of making rational thought, coming up with creative solutions, evaluating options. So, and what also that fear does, it's incredibly draining, emotionally draining. It's phenomenal. So if you have something that you're bothered about in your personal life or in your business life, it is incredibly draining in terms of energy. I've seen and I've been around people that are buzzing and they're full of energy, and the conversation goes on to something that's a point of stress or worry or concern, and you may only have a conversation for half an hour, and they look like they've done 5 rounds with Mike Tyson. Or 5 minutes with Jamie Keeling, if that's whichever the case may be. But my point being here is energy spent on worry and anxiety is incredibly draining in terms of our energy levels. There's a guy I used to see, a phenomenal guy who did very deep acupuncture, very deep acupressure to stimulate the autonomic nervous system. So while he was executing amazing pain, prodding me and poking me to help me heal from an injury, we had the most fascinating conversations. And he was one of those guys that was like a mad professor who had listened to and absorbed and read voraciously. And I got talking about how some people, athletes or business people, when they're faced with a challenge, crumble or get worn down and battle weary and eventually run out of steam and give up. While others, athletes or business people, are resilient and come back time and again and again. And what his answer was, I was using an example of a sporting hero of mine, again with the sailing sport, being Ben Ainsley. So Ben Ainsley, comeback kid, is almost like his rules of engagement in any major regatta is, yes, he's consistent, but in the early stages, he ends up almost to get towards the back of the pack, and when he absolutely needs to turn it around, he's the ultimate turnaround guy, and he comes back. And this guy, Andre, the acupressurist guy, was saying, Yeah, it's because he sees it as a game. It's like if the odds were not enough of a challenge, subconsciously or consciously, he stacks the odds even higher against him by ending up further back down the scoreboard than he would have liked to have been. And against those stacked odds, he goes, "Bring it on!" And he fights his way back and wins and wins and wins right to the wire and delivers. Because he's able to do that because he sees it as a game. So what I'd love you to do when you come across people in your business that are experiencing hesitancy or frustration or fear or anxiety, or indeed you're experiencing it yourself, I want you to think about it as a game. And a game that if you think and approach it right, it's a game that you can win. Think back to the A to B we talked about before and the how question and how that how can raise up all those feelings of anxiety and negative emotions. Well, I think the W is at the wrong end of that word. Swap it round. Swap the W round to the other end of the word so you think about who. Who's the kind of person that you need to become in order to get to point B in your stride? And what that means is get curious about the fear, the thing that you're getting worried or anxious about. Look into that fear because there's a lesson in there. The purpose of that fight or flight, the purpose of fear, ultimately, is your body's nervous system protecting you and keeping you safe. And so massively important that you pay attention. So there's certain times when, you're driving fast in snow and ice, as weather forecast may suggest we've got plenty of snow and ice coming over the next few weeks, or you're stood on the, the edge of a cliff. Actually, fear serves a very, very good purpose, but doesn't serve a necessarily good purpose if it paralyzes you from taking action in your business. So look into it, look through the fear and say, what is it specifically I'm concerned about or I'm worried about? And what are the things that I can do or that we as a team can do to mitigate against those risks? Get curious and look through the fear because you crack the thing, you pay attention to what your subconscious is drawing to the surface, and then you'll be able to move forward a lot quicker because we can work a plan to that, we can work out a solution to that. And you take it from the subconscious, the unconscious, back into the conscious, make a plan, and then you feel in a position where you can be brave. Hey, we went into business because we didn't want certainty. We wanted a level of risk, excitement, uncertainty, unpredictability. Of course, as Tony Robbins would say, that's one of the 6 human needs. We also need a level of certainty, another of those 6 human needs. Well, we can do that when we've got a plan, but when we've understood what's holding us back and we've looked into what's the cause of the fear and we've worked out how to mitigate it, then we can be courageous. Then we can be brave and move forward against that plan. Get out of your own way. And in order to be able to do that, it's really important to take personal responsibility, get a kind of that blame remover out of the way, and listen to the story that you've been telling yourself that maybe have been causing you to stay stuck or to stop or prevent you from taking the action that you need to take in order to be able to move your business forward. And Grant, so welcome that fear, look into it. Look and drill down, get curious as to what's behind it and look at the plan to mitigate that. Oh, what if we run out of cash? Right, what do we need to do by way of funding? What if if that first marketing strategy doesn't work? Okay, what's our backup? What's our secondary backup? What's our tertiary backup? Who else can we talk to? Who can we partner with? These are all the questions that I go through in the process I go through where I'm developing strategic plans with clients to help them to significantly accelerate the growth of their business. I'd like to move on to point 3, and this links to purpose. It's not about you. I've seen too many businesses, large and small, spend too much time looking inward. If you let's take the example of Nokia was 10 years ago the largest phone handset manufacturer and supplier in the world. When you've got divisions that are in charge of geographical territories and you've got executives at the head of those divisions that want to make sure that they keep their job, where do you think their focus of attention goes? Who do they compare their performance against? Well, how they did and performed last quarter or last year, and importantly, how they're performing against their peer that's heading up another region or another division. Why? Well, if they're only just ahead of them, then they're more likely to retain their job. But what that drives is internal focus. It drives navel gazing instead of looking outwards. In our business, it's not about us. It's not about you. It's about the people that you're serving. It's about the difference that you're making to your marketplace, the people that you're serving in that marketplace. What are their needs? What is it that they're looking for? And what are the problems that they're grappling with? And how could you develop and come up with solutions to be able to help them? And focus on serving them. So let's put our attention outwards to our customers and to our customers' customers. Hey, what if we took that level of thinking and saying, if we did a good job and we helped our customers get more business with their customers, how valuable are we going to be? If we help our customers offer a better service or experience or product to their customers, how valuable are we going to be? Let's see ourselves as partners. Another name that GP stands for is growth partners. I see myself as a partner and my team as partners in your growth over a period of time, that we're an integral part of your central core team, your power team, to help you grow your business. So let's focus on serving. So what does that mean? It might mean love your customers more. Let them know how much you appreciate them. Remember, 67%, 2/3 of customers that take their business elsewhere do it because of perceived indifference. And what that means is they don't think you care enough about them. It's not about price. It's not about difference around product features or service features. It's that they just don't feel enough love from you, enough attention from you. So let's double down on making sure that we deliver an amazing experience to our existing customers and add value. So if you've got any thoughts or insights to those 3 key points, the first of 12 that I want to share with you around how to keep doubling your business every year, then put the questions and put the thoughts in the question box now. So the first of those 3 was secure your foundation, your platform for growth. Look at your cash, making sure you've built some cash buffers, importantly, but also make sure that your cash flow is working as effectively as it could do. Secondly, look at the systems. Are they as efficient as possible? Is everybody working? Have you got a good conversion system from taking those leads and converting those into, increasing the chances of converting those into customers? Is your production systems working as effectively as possible? And also looking at how you can secure and build your pipeline, starting first with existing customers. Then the next thing we went on was embrace the game. See the challenges as a positive challenge rather than one that's going to knock you out of the game, and see it as a challenge that you can win. And imagine how good you're going to feel when you've become the victor. You've scored. You've won that game. And then finally, focus on the outside, not on the belly button, but on the outside. I asked in the email that I sent out promoting this webinar to see if there's anybody got any questions. And thank you to Andrew. Andrew's actually just started, or is about to start, a week on Thursday to start working with us on the W Business program. And he's got a fantastic business. I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefore it's here, but massive opportunity to scale. That's why we're working together. So Andrew's email back to me. We've been busy securing relationships, signing contracts, and putting the company structures in place so that we can provide security. However, the one thing we have yet to do, and which concerns many, is how to secure the funding for this. By the way, as I'm going through this question and the answers to this question, if you've got any questions that you want to put forward to me regarding issues in your business or thoughts or ideas or comments you want to make on the content that I've just shared with you, please, by all means, put it into the question box, and I'll cover as many as I can in the sort of 10 minutes that I've got left. So back to Andrew. So his specific questions are: and I take a sip of water, what is the lending climate like for SMEs at the moment? What do I see coming down the road that might affect any sentiment? And as SMEs, what can we do to position ourselves as attractive as a target for lending, so that we've got the funding for growth? So these are my sort of thoughts and observations, both from looking at the marketplace and from the time I spend in businesses helping them to grow. And also the time I've spent, as some of you know, inside one of the high street banks. There has been a shift in focus of high street banks. In my opinion, they've moved up the food chain to medium-sized businesses and corporate businesses. Why? Well, shareholder pressure. They've got to deliver a higher rate of return and better flow of dividends and earnings per share for those for their shareholders. So that's left a gap. That's left a gap at the bottom of the so the lower micro businesses and the lower end of the sort of SME scale of businesses. However, Barclays has reported that recently reported back end of last year that the loan market in a post-Brexit world has remained open for business. Although there has been and there is expected to be a slight increase in cost. Exchange rate differences on the value of the pound has meant that an increased operating cost for some of the banks and the interest rates basically that they're going to charge, there's going to be seen a bit of a premium on that. There are also, it's widely been spoken about that the Bank of England could be or is expected to be raising interest rates several times over the coming months and years. And some are saying that interest rates could go up to a level of 4%. That's just some view of some economists. Yeah, that could have an impact on the cost base of a number of businesses, particularly if they're highly geared. Back to my earlier point about building a cash buffer or a cash war chest. If you've got that in place, then it'll help you kind of weather any of those increases in interest rate rises. Also, in the marketplace, I don't know about you, but over Christmas, it certainly felt that every time we went to the supermarket, the cost of the good old supermarket basket or trolley was that much higher, and I think under the guise of the weakness of the pound, I think a good number of businesses have been slipping under the radar price rises. So that's going to lead to an increase in inflation, and again, there could be a response with increasing interest rates to that. However, if you can't beat them, join them. I know a number of my clients, through conversations I have with them, have managed to use increases in commodity prices, raw materials, and increases in the cost of because of the exchange rate to get through some price increases for customers, and so that's been a successful strategy for them. Anyway, back to the point about the gaps in the bottom of the market in funding small businesses. Peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding has grown massively over the last 5 years. Funding Circle, Growth Street, to name just two. There's one business after another. There are many crowdfunding platforms where high net worth individuals, or not necessarily even high net worth individuals, are willing to put money into businesses at acceptable, reasonable rates of return. Also, high net worth individuals themselves are getting no return on their investments, leaving it in cash in the bank. So they're looking for investments in companies, in businesses, whether that be debt-based investment, a loan, or whether that be taking a shareholding. The Enterprise EIS investment scheme, the Enterprise Investment Scheme, again, another opportunity that encourages, from a tax perspective, high net worth individuals to invest into businesses. So new suppliers of finance, of funding, have come into the marketplace. Additionally, though, approximately 20 so-called challenger banks are currently in the process of attaining an operating license. So there's, for example, Starling Bank. They're just going to operate a mobile-only current account. The Services family is a bank dedicated to providing finance to armed forces and former armed forces personnel. Been recent financial press coverage of the application by a Redwood Bank, backed by some equity funds, to supply small businesses. There's a quote from Jonathan Rowland, who would be the chairman of Redwood if they get the regulatory approval, was, the major banks have not returned to anywhere near their he's talking about when he says crisis, he means 2008, business lending levels, and the uncertainty caused by Brexit is likely to worsen the situation. So Redwood have seen, and many others, the other 19, have seen a market opportunity to come into the market and serve SME businesses like you and I. And so I think there's great opportunities. So that takes me to answering Andrew's final point. What do we need to do to put ourselves in a position that where we are going to be attracted to investment? First of all, we need to know our numbers. We need to have a clear plan, a clear strategy backed by a robust business case. Can you demonstrate with your product or your service good distribution channels, good route to market? Have you built a fan base, a customer base, a tribe in the common, vernacular of the day in terms of marketing spill? Have you built a tribe of raving fans who are buying into what you do, the difference that you make, and your products and your services? Those in the tribe could be customers, or they could be people that are on the edges that are still potential customers that are just checking you out, but they're following what you're up to. They're following the information, the content that you're putting out into the marketplace, and they're becoming fans over time. Look for partnerships. Again, this will help build confidence. The best example here is take an episode of Dragon's Den and rewind those that you've seen through your mind and think about the questions that the dragons are asking. How can I scale the business? How many of this product have you sold already? Who has already agreed to retail or wholesale that product for you? Well, one thing to look for with partners, in order to get a product out to market, you need three things. You need brand, you need that distribution channel, and you need product. Now, if you've got a strength in one of those areas, for example, product, then can you partner with somebody else? And let's say you've got a strong product, but you're not yet well known, and you don't have a large sales force or a distributor, sort of series of distributors network. That's the network I was looking for. The word I was looking for, a distributor network all over the UK. If you've got a strong product, you could partner with somebody that has a strong brand and has a good distribution network, or a good network of offices and salespeople and or effective internet channels, in order to be able to do a JV, a joint venture with them, to get your product to market. Similarly, the other way around, if you've got distribution and even you've got a product, then you could look for the endorsement of a brand to give your product authenticity, to give it standing and build trust in the marketplace. Also, when putting together a business case for funding, what the investor's looking for is, have you got skin in the game? They're looking, not only have you tapped into and secured all available grants that there might be, and by the way, it's a lot more fragmented, the grant landscape now. And instead of, for example, small businesses going to an organization like Growth Accelerator to get some funding, it's all down to local regional councils having different grants available for different businesses. For example, in our local borough or local council, county council, there is up to 50% funding for products or projects, I beg your pardon, that will increase the revenue in your business, between £200 and £1,000 worth of funding available. But there are grants available on a local level, on a regional level, and on a national level. And in some cases, there may even still be some grants available on a European level. And then also back to that point about how much skin have you got in the game, that what an investor be looking to saying, other than just the effort, the energy, the sweat equity that you're putting in, are you bearing some of the risk as well? Because if they're going to bear some of the risk, they want you to be seen to be bearing some of the risks. But the good news about all of this is there are high net worth individuals, there are the peer-to-peer crowdfunding platforms that they are looking for good business projects, good businesses to invest in. So if you take the time to put together a good pitch and increasingly today, a good video-based pitch in order to capture their imagination, share their market opportunity, show how your product differentiates, show your distribution and your plan to get that to market, and show some sense, what if analysis around if some of the numbers change and you've built in safety within your plan so that they have a level of de-risking in the investment, then you will find yourself in a really good position. Too many people go to their bank with give us some money, please. And they haven't done any of the work around that robust pitch in order to be able to grow the business. So, Andrew, I hope you found that useful. I know we're going to be spending some time together in the launch of the next DYB program and the DYB Energize Retreat. So we'll get some time to work more specifically one-on-one with your business, specifically around those issues, and actually get to the point of, right, let's get this plan put together. Now, not everybody will want to ask a question, in public, so to speak. So if you want to have a chat about an issue in your business, if you've got something that you're grappling with, just drop me an email and we'll line up a call. And what I absolutely take great delight, and I love having the opportunity to get under the skin of different businesses, to find out what it is that makes them tick, but more importantly, be able to give you advice and ideas and strategies that will help you work and help you address those issues. I spent time in so many different businesses every year, and that stretches back over 20 odd years now, that I've got a great resource and experience to be able to draw from. So please, at any time, if you want to run anything by me, you want to bounce anything off me, drop me an email and we'll arrange a call and I'll be able to answer your questions. We're going to be I mentioned W Business. Really excited. We're into our 4th program now. We kick off next week. I know that people in my network are always aware of when we're doing a launch, and so we're excited. We've got a cracking group of businesses on the program, and really looking forward to the launch of that. At some stage in the future, when you're ready, when you think that actually I really want to stretch the growth of a business, really want to challenge the status quo. Only today I had a conversation with a gentleman that's doing all right. It's comfortable. Business is actually profitable, but he knows that if he doesn't push forward, he's not going to achieve his goals that he wants to do within the next 5-10 years to exit his business and sell his business that will set him up for retirement. So when you feel you're ready to really push forward and around the growth of your business, again, get in touch and we'll show you more about the details about the program, and it may well be a good fit for you at that time. The other thing that I wanted to mention is next week will be the next of these webinars. So I'll be covering steps 4 to 6 out of the 12 steps on how to double your business every year. So what is the next one? Number 4. Number 5 is consistency and the importance of rituals. Number 6 is MTO. I will leave that cryptic on purpose. Some of you may know what those initials stand for, but I'll share with you more about that. Indeed, I would love you to send me more questions in the meantime, Gavin@gavinpreston.com, so we can build on the Q&A. I want this, if there's enough interest and there's enough demand, I would like to regularly jump onto a webinar to share with you answers to your own specific questions. Well, look at that. According to my time on PowerPoint here, 44 minutes and 45 seconds. Pretty impressive. I was aiming for 45 minutes. So probably a fluke, of course. So thank you very much for your time and your attention this evening. It's been a pleasure serving you. Any questions, just let me know. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic week ahead and set yourself off with the right habits, the right clarity of a plan to make 2017 your best year yet. Thanks very much. Good night, everybody.